Does he know anything about what's going on in the Home Office? Last year, the Prime Minister promised to recruit 13,000 more police officers. How's that going?
Prime Minister.
3,000 more by the end of March, and we're rising on police numbers. Mr. Speaker, they left the Home Office. The criminal justice system is utterly broken. Sir Brian Leveson has said on that. They lost control of our borders. They lost control of every single department. And she's obviously spent the morning rehearsing for the Liz Truss show. She's probably going to be the guest star next week. Both of them talking about how Liz Truss was 100% right. But what Liz Truss said was the Conservatives need to take... No, they don't want to hear it. The Conservatives need to take responsibility. The Conservatives need to take responsibility for their 14 years of failure. That was Liz Truss, their former leader. So perhaps she'll heed that, get up and say sorry.
Badanoch.
Wrong again. I asked him how many police officers. There are now 1,300 fewer officers than at the election. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if the Home Secretary wants his job, but I do read that she's having conversations with Tony Blair because he's already given up on the Prime Minister. Why don't we talk about the Health Secretary? Let's see how he's doing. We do know he definitely wants the job. He said he'd end the doctor strikes. So can the Prime Minister tell the House how many appointments have been lost to strike action since last July?
Mr. Speaker, they left the NHS an absolute mess, with the highest waiting lists on record and the lowest confidence in the NHS ever. The Health Secretary said he would do 2 million extra appointments. He hasn't done 2 or 3 or 4. He's done 5 million extra appointments. That is because we invested in the NHS. What did they do? Having broken it, they voted against that investment. They should hang their heads in shame.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him how many appointments have been lost to strike action. He doesn't know. Let me tell him. We have lost 93,000 appointments to strikes since the Health Secretary gave doctors a massive pay rise. It's the truth. I know they wouldn't know the truth if they punched them in the face, but I'm telling them the truth. It is no wonder that we read this morning that the former Deputy Prime Minister has said about the Health Secretary she'd rather stick pins in her eyes than be on his golden ticket. And, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister congratulates himself on 5 million extra appointments. In our last year of office, we delivered 6.5 million extra appointments.
Good day and welcome back to British Report. Right, put down your Christmas shopping and look at the nearest hospital because the festive season has just been officially cancelled by a wave of white coats. We are witnessing an unprecedented national eruption as over 1,000, precisely 1,299 young doctors in some regions, part of a massive national movement, have taken to the streets in a final, desperate act of defiance. This is the 14th time since this saga began, but this one feels different. It's the super flu strike. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has just been caught in a pincer movement between a record-breaking flu epidemic and a medical workforce that has officially had it with his government's rhetoric. Starmer didn't just stumble this week, he exploded in a fit of parliamentary frustration, branding the nation's resident doctors, the very people he promised to protect, as irresponsible and reckless. The mask of the NHS-loving Labour leader hasn't just slipped, it has been ripped off and trampled on by the very boots of the frontline staff now marching past Downing Street. Quick favour, if you're loving this high-stakes breakdown of the Westminster Civil War and want to stay updated on whether the NHS survives the week, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show, because the drama in the liaison committee was a masterclass in political self-destruction. The scene was set for a classic grilling, and Tory MP Simon Hoare didn't disappoint. He leaned across the table and asked the Prime Minister a question that will go down in the history of questions you probably shouldn't answer honestly. He asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, how gutted are you about the BMA's latest strike action vote? Starmer, looking every bit the man who has spent the morning reading terrifying A&E waiting time figures, replied, "Very gutted." Hoare, seeing the opening, pressed, "Is that 10 out of 10? And Starmer, falling headfirst into the trap, confirmed, 10 out of 10. He then unleashed a verbal assault on the British Medical Association, declaring, "It's irresponsible at any time, particular at the moment. It's irresponsible action by the BMA, and not for the first time." Now, let's talk about that moment Starmer is so worried about. He isn't lying about the timing. It's catastrophic. We are currently in the grip of what doctors are calling a super flu pandemic, with hospital admissions for flus surging by over 55% in the last week alone. In Scotland and parts of northern England, 2 in 5 people are waiting more than 4 hours in A&E. It is the highest level of pressure the service has faced since the peak of the global pandemic. And yet, into this firestorm, Starmer decided to throw the word irresponsible at the people expected to put the fires out. The BMA's response was a rhetorical sledgehammer. They pointed out that an 83% vote for strike action on a 65% turnout isn't irresponsibility. It's a cry for help from a workforce that feels utterly betrayed by a government that promised change but delivered a real terms pay cut. Cut for 2026. Simon Hoare, the Tory MP, landed the most painful blow of the session when he reminded the Prime Minister that this chaos was entirely predictable. He put it to Starmer that the latest walkouts were not actually surprising because the government had already shown its belly. He argued that by signing off on a massive pay rise last year without linking it to any productivity improvements, Labour had taught the BMA a very dangerous lesson, that if they shout loud enough and strike long enough, the government will eventually cough and sign the cheque. Starmer's defence was to start reciting numbers like a broken calculator. He claimed, "We said we'd do 2 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government. We've done 5 million. But here is the catch, the clever bit of political accounting that the doctors on the street are exposing. The BMA argues that those 5 million appointments are a mirage, that the government is simply cannibalizing existing roles and repurposing them on paper to make the numbers look better, while the actual number of working doctors on the wards stays the same. The doctors are marching because they see 30,000 graduates competing for only 10,000 training places, a looming unemployment crisis in a service that is supposedly desperate for staff. Starmer is bragging about appointments while the people meant to conduct those appointments are standing on a picket line in the freezing December rain. The nation is now erupting because the two sides aren't even speaking the same language anymore. Starmer is appealing to doctors to push back against the BMA, essentially asking them to stage a coup against their own union, while Health Secretary Wes Streeting is calling them the Grinch who stole Christmas. Meanwhile, the public is caught in the middle. While the government claims the doctors have lost the sympathy of the public, the sight of 1,299 young doctors, highly educated, essential workers, marching because they can't see a future in the UK's medical system is a devastating visual that no amount of spin can fix. Starmer is trying to look like the strongman of fiscal responsibility, but he's ending the year looking like a leader who has lost control of the one institution his party is supposed to own, the National Health Service. The 5-day strike is just the beginning. If this is 10 out of 10 disappointment, 2026 is going to be a very long year for Keir Starmer. Thank you so much for watching.